Hello, grade 5. This week we are studying poetry. We talked in the last video about narrative and free verse. Again, narrative poetry tells a story. It has characters and dialogue, and it can rhyme. But free verse shares ideas and feelings with no set rhyming pattern or rhythm, and it also has no set line length. So today we're going to look at two poems, Stage Fright on page 176 and 177, and we're also going to read another poem called Catching Quiet. Right, again, the narrative poem tells a story, contains characters who may communicate their thoughts, feelings, and ideas to each other and to the reader through dialogue. A narrative poem may or may not rhyme, all right, but free verse never rhymes, all right? It doesn't have a set rhyming pattern or rhythm, and it shares feelings and ideas. It can also be a mix of short and long lines. So we're going to read these two poems today, and we're going to find out which ones are, which is narrative and which is free verse. Okay, again, this is on page 176 in your literature anthology. Stage Fright. I wanted the role, the prince. I got it, knew it, I was totally convinced. I memorized each line, learned them by heart. I studied and studied my perfect prince part. But when I took center stage, I stammered, stuttered, hemmed, hawed, suddenly shuddered. My heart skipped a beat, face turned bright red, until finally prince words popped back in my head. Though I'll always know my mind simply snapped, I still got a thrill when I took my last bow, as my classmates stood up, shouted, and clapped. All right, so this is a poem that includes elements of narrative fiction. Okay, look at I got it, knew it, I was totally convinced. Here the repetition of it in these lines. All right, along with the perfect prince part shows that he is confident, all right, but the speaker changes when he gets on the stage. He becomes nervous and he forgets his lines, all right? He opens his mouth to say his lines and he forgets what to say. All right, you see here the change in the speaker's feelings. He says stammered, shuddered, and heart skipped a beat. All of these let us know that the speaker is nervous. Okay, but later the word thrill lets us know that the speaker succeeded. All right, so this story is about how he has the role of the prince. It didn't exactly go the way that he hoped because he got really nervous, but then his classmates stood up and shouted and clapped for him when he was able to regain his confidence and say his lines. All right, so we could say the theme of this poem is that it's fun to perform even when you don't do it perfectly or that everybody makes mistakes. On the next page, we have Catching Quiet. All right. It's hard to catch quiet in the city. You have to be quick. It isn't around long. You might find it after the roar of a truck, before a jet flies by. You might find it after the horns stop honking, before the sirens start. You might find it after the ice cream man's bell, before your friends call you to play. But when you find it, stick it in your heart fast. Keep it there. It's a bit of the sky. All right, so here this is a free verse poem. All right, we don't have a set rhyming pattern or a set any set form. All right, we have short lines and long lines. Okay, here it says it isn't around long. The word long can refer to a period of time. All right, so the line before it says you have to be quick, meaning that the quiet won't be around for a long time. And the poet here repeats the words after and before in this poem to show that quiet occurs between two sounds. Okay, the poet here, if you notice, he reverses the usual order before and after. He starts with after and then before. So the poet wants to emphasize the noisiness of the city. Quiet occurs after one sound and before another. Okay, quiet can be described here. It appears after noisy events such as roaring trucks, flying jets, honking horns, and he compares it at the end to a bit of the sky. All right, that means it's open and it is still. Okay, so is Catching Quiet a narrative poem or free verse poem? We said it is a free verse poem because it does not tell a story and it does not have a regular rhyming pattern. None of the words at the end of the line, such as quiet, city, quick, long, rhyme, but the lines, another thing is that the lines before your friends call you to play, these are not standard length. So, and there's also no main character or conflict, does not tell a story at all. So this is a free verse poem. Number 2, what words or phrases are repeated in Catching Quiet? How does repetition emphasize the poet's message? The phrase, you might find it, repeats a lot. All right, it shows that there are a lot of places to look for quiet and that it is hard to find. All right, I think it's 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So you might find it appears 3 times. And let's move to number 4. Reread Catching Quiet. Use details from the text to explain the message the author is trying to communicate. The theme here is that a quiet moment is very special and it should be cherished. All right, it says here it's hard to catch quiet in the city. This tells that it's very hard to find a quiet place. Stick it in your heart fast, keep it there. It tells us that the narrator cherishes quiet moments.